new fabric. I just found it yesterday. I was so excited, and you're going to just walk through with me the cutting of this fabric. I love it because it is absolutely, the colors are just beautiful, especially for spring and fall, what's been going on. This will work for spring, but it's light enough it'll carry into fall, so it's kind of like a fabric that I can wear all year round, which is what I love about it. It's circular, so the pattern I've decided to do is number 425, which is called Craig's Blouse. That's not necessarily important. It just has some soft gathers in the front. And so we're going to lay it out together. You're going to watch me, and we're going to see what happens. The first thing is that it's horribly ragged at the end, so I'm just going to clean that up just so that it's a little easier to work with. Now you could, if you wanted to, most shears will just tear. And the nice thing about tearing them is for sure you'll get them nice and even. So I tore that so that I'm pretty sure that those edges are even. And you can line up the selvage. Now it doesn't matter, and some of you have really fancy cutting rooms and some of you don't. We're going to pretend we don't, because the ones that have really fancy cutting rooms don't need help. They've got fancy cutting rooms. But the ones that don't have fancy cutting rooms, we're the ones that need help. So this is as big as our table gets. And rule number one, once you've laid out, if you have a small cutting surface, which this is, then I'm going to have to take whatever's left that hangs off the table, and don't leave it off the table. You know what though, I'm going to leave it down there just to kind of show a point. I don't use pins. I think if you guys know me, you know I don't use pins, but what I use is weights, and it doesn't matter what weights you use. I'm going to use remote controls because they're dense and they're heavy. A lot of people, when you're working with shears, they always talk about it slipping. Well, nothing can slip if it's weighed down heavy enough and you get rid of gravity. So I actually am going to get rid of this because I know what's going to happen, and you all know it too. I'm going to take whatever's left of this fabric down here, and I'm going to put it on the table. And that way there's nothing that will shift my fabric in any direction, and it's weighted down. You can use as many weights as you feel comfortable. I mean, you can buy the weights, I just don't. Especially if I'm in a hotel, I use whatever I have and I just lay it on. So now I'm really free to cut. And a couple cutting tips that I'm going to give you is that when I start cutting, and you know, it's good for the actual edge to be loose because it'll kind of come up and go back down with me sometimes if it's so rigid. I want you to cross the corners. So completely as you start cutting, cut past the part where you're supposed to be and then turn the corner. I put my finger right there so that I kind of hold that in place and that can't shift. But again, something typical that I hear a lot is, oh, the fabric slips. I can't slip. It can't go anywhere. It's weighted down. I don't have any gravity off the end there. And so everything's going to stay nice and complete. And I can't wait because my new blouse is going to be finished shortly. So a lot of you use rotary cutters. I'm going to say to you, it doesn't matter whether you use rotary cutters or scissors as long as you're able to cut comparatively. Now, if you notice my edge here is jagged. Well, a serger will clean that up, a sewing machine will clean that up, a French seam will clean that up. So it doesn't really have to be as exact as sometimes we think it does. I use an 8-inch blade. I open it up all the way so I have nice, long cuts. But then again, once I get to the bottom, change directions so that it's easy enough to cut out. So notice when I came to the end here, instead of trying to go this way, I came this way because it was closer to me. So just to review again as I lay down the next piece, which this is not going to have long sleeves, it's going to have short sleeves, so that sleeve piece will fit right in there. Take your weights, move them to the next piece, and just put a couple to where once I've cut it, I just fold it up, and that's done. And then I can go to the next piece. And as I come to the undersleeve, as I go around the corner, you can see that I'm just going to always cross as I go the next direction. So those few things will really make your job a whole lot easier. And then I'm going to go short sleeve across the bottom there. And I can cut there, lift that up, and just cut along the bottom. And to do that a little more precise, I'll measure it. But easy enough. It's really important to pull all this up. Don't let it hang down because it'll constantly move my fabric as I'm trying to cut and trying to stabilize. With weights, just stabilize it to the table. Even if you have to do small sections, just move those small sections. A lot of times if I have a small section that I'm cutting out on, I'll lay the fabric down on the floor and just get my base layout, make sure I have enough fabric, and then I'll move it up to the table and do small sections. So I know I'm going to get it all. I don't need to worry about the layout. It's just a matter of where I'm going to put which piece and how I'm going to do it. So hopefully that'll cut, because I hear so much feedback about, do I use rotary cutter? Do I use scissors? What gives an exact cut? We don't really need all of that. We really need to eliminate that weight that stresses it down on the end of the table and recognize it just won't slip out from under my scissors.